All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Singles Connect podcast. We're super excited for you to be here today. If you're watching us on YouTube, do the needful. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn your notifications on, drop a comment on this episode. Let us know what your thoughts are, or let us know what topics you'd like us to discuss. But most importantly, do not leave today without giving us a thumbs up on this episode. All right, today's episode is body count. And y'all know that the Singles Connect community, our goal is to bring amazing conversations that allows us to dive deep to provide an objective perspective on different topics that have to do with building healthy, sustainable relationships that lead to healthy families and building a strong community. And I have with me my beautiful and my handsome co-host. Let's get started, guys. How y'all doing today?
I am doing fantastic. How are you, Dr. OJ?
Doing great, Miss Stacy. What about you, Mr. Akan?
I'm doing great. Good to be
Yes,
here.
today's about
Let's
the
get into this
body
conversation and
count.
let's chop
First
it
of
up.
all, do y'all know your body count, my co-host?
Appreciate.
Ah, that's amazing. That's incredible, Dr. OJ. Wow, what a way to start off the, what are we, the third week of the year? Oh, God.
It's not only
Yeah, it's like
Donald Trump that can bring the drama.
don't wrap-
Oh, my goodness.
Bring
Well,
the drama.
what can I say? Way to go to start the year off. All
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
so who's gonna start off the conversation? Who's gonna jump it off? I
Okay,
mean,
well, as far as body count, at some point in my adult life, I was really proud of my body count, to be very honest. I was like, oh my God, I'm still doing good as a church raised Christian girl, sheltered, protected, preserved for as long as her parents could have managed. And then life happened, and I'm like, I don't even, so I would say I don't know what my body count is, but I'll say like I've had some experiences, like I just don't pay too much attention to it because then it just takes me to a place of self judgment.
mhm.
So that's just the honest truth. I don't know what you guys think.
Hmm.
So I think, for me personally, what I can say is, and I guess, just for to give some context to our audience is probably wondering why we're talking about this topic. Um, we thought it was a topic worth talking about because there was a couple of viral moments earlier last year around this conversation where it seems as if there is still a taboo around this topic. I've even heard where it, and I am going to be curious to hear what Akan's take is on it when he's ready to give his perspective. Where some men say they don't believe that women are honest when they have these conversations, in terms of the numbers that they throw out there. For me, I think the only person I really need to have that conversation with is the person that I choose to be with. And
Mhm.
I don't have a problem answering the question. However, for me, it's not a question that I choose to ask, my partner or significant other or whatever the case may be. It's just not a priority for me. The questions that I am concerned about, or the questions that I care to ask, is what is your belief system when it comes to monogamy?
Mhm.
Have you been tested lately? You know, do you, what are any fantasies, desires, or anything like that that you have? So that way, and I'm asking these questions to determine whether or not we're compatible in this particular area. Where you have been before, I really don't care. I care about the current moment of your state of mind and what is our relationship going to be moving forward with me. That's kind of really the only thing that I care about. So it's not a big deal for me. I don't stress over it because I think I am in agreement with Dr. OJ that I am proud of where my mindset is, and I'm also proud of the life that I've lived. I don't judge any other woman or what their journey have been. Everybody is allowed to live their own life and have had their own journey. So that's my perspective on it. That I really don't have an issue with it, but men, as I said, it was a viral moment. I can actually give you the two example of the viral moments where a young lady said, it was actually one of those live podcasts that was being taped, and I think it was in DC, and it was asked, that was a topic, one of the topic of conversation, and her response went to the audience when the guy said, how important is it for a man to know his woman body count if he asks? Like, is it even a conversation? And she's told the one of the lady in the audience that it doesn't count if it's small and if the sex is bad. And the whole audience uproar. And it was a viral taping. You guys can go look, be free to look it up. Our audience can look it up. My co-host can also go take a look at it if they want to. And then the other podcast where that was the podcast B Simone was doing with Ashley from now doing the what's her new podcast called In Totality. They were talking about it. And her D Simone was kind of honest, but she didn't kind of give her exact number. And that moment also went viral and hit the shade room because she said, my fingers, my toes, and her co-host finger and her co-host toes. And that's where she's going to leave it. And that was a viral moment again last year. And it hit the shade room. So that's why I thought that, it's, I guess, good for our community here in the singles community to review it and see what people's perspective are in terms of if they think it's a work, if it's a conversation worth having, and if they care to know.
So my thing is, I guess I'll let Akan go, but before I mean, for me, I feel like men are right when they say that women are not honest when it comes to body count.
Mm.
For very good reasons, because women automatically feel like they are auditioning for a role, right? When it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the male female dynamics, when it comes to certain things, it feels like the men are auditioning. When it comes to the ability to provide, to do all those things, but when it comes to that part of purity and just that sexual preference or whatever, women feel like they're more under a more a magnifying glass, you know. So when you ask a woman, she's going to want to present herself as chaste as she possibly can just to avoid the criticism and the judgment. Because a woman having a certain body count and a man having the same amount of body count, who do you think society is going to look sideways? You know, the guy's going to be like, oh, my cheek, oh my God. And then the woman is going to be like, really? Same body count.
So,
So in other words, when it comes to men, it seems like a high body count is a flex, right? But then when it comes to women, it feels like, oh, maybe
Mhm.
like the more of the S word is used, like you were around too many people. And I have to agree with you, Dr. OJ. That's true. When it comes to body count, and my perspective is, does body count come up? It does come up. It's very controversial, right? It comes up, it's very controversial. But when that question comes up, who is mostly more on the defensive
Yes.
or put in the place where they feel like they're on defensive? I think it's women. I think for the men, it's still there. You still get judged depending on who you're telling, but it's something that comes up. But the debate has also been going on like, okay, is this even actually like a question to ask? When you do meet someone, like body count and stuff. And
mhm.
I've been in debates where people have like, there's no reason to ask that, because obviously maybe you're gonna get a lie, or if you do find out what the truth is, you might get hurt there, right? So that's my perspective on it. So I think it's for us to discuss, chop it up, see if it's something that should matter. And I think it does matter in some light, depending. But ultimately, I just feel that for me, it's just like Stacy said,
Hmm.
where you are now is what really matters. I know sometimes stuff you did in the past can
Yes.
sort of come with you, depending on the decisions you made, because there are always repercussions. But where you are now is what matters. Someone said, um, you can be something, or you used to
Hmm.
be something, but the question is, are you that thing now? So even if it's like, even if you're losing a positive, like, oh, you used to be a champion, you used to be a top commander. And I'll just tell you, literally, I heard it on the show where someone was asked if Eddie Murphy is the top stand-up comedian, and the guy said he used to be, but he's not. So I think it does really matter where you are. And so it really just depends, and who you used to
So
be
it,
might
it
not
sounds
really matter.
as if
So that's
we
my
are all on the
perspective.
same page in terms of for us three here. It
Hmm.
doesn't concerns us. What concerns us is where we're at right now in the relationship, the state of mind that our current partner is in, the
Hmm.
values that they currently have, your habits and practice right now while you're with me. But let's say for the culture's sake, because we know things change in the culture. As Akan said, it's a double standard. It still is. As much as our culture is, we want to say it, it's modern. People don't care about talking about certain things anymore, and yeah, we see that a lot on social media, in music. Some things are applauded, some things are praised, some things is a flex, and there are certain things that still have a taboo. Um, but for single people that are dating out there, do you think that if someone asks them the question, like, should this be like a deal breaker in a relationship? Like, if somebody is pushing, like, the person you're currently dating or you have an interest in, if the person is pushing this topic, is pushing this issue, like, I need to know, I need to know. Like,
Mhm.
what do you guys think? Would that be like a deal breaker in a relationship if someone is pushing to know the answer to that question?
Personally, for me, I would not really even appreciate that in the first place in this season of my life. I guess for me, it's a different dynamic because I've been married, have children, and divorced. So you coming at me with that is just going to look like, okay, where do you really want me to start addressing this? And how do you want me to approach that? It's not going to be a realistic conversation for me to have as a discussion in the relationship that I would get into in this season. But now I guess maybe pre-marriage, never been married, never had kids, that could be a legitimate question you want to ask and you want to, talk about. So I don't know what you guys think about that.
So, Dr. Oji, so you don't have a problem with
Yeah.
someone asking you that, and you're saying that might be a little complicated because you were married, right?
No,
But would you be
I don't have
concerned
any concern
about
for
the
that.
person
That's
who
really
you are
none of
trying
my
to date
that's
when it comes to
that's none of
that?
my business. And I guess because the focus right now is really beyond that. So it's not even a conversation that I would have or bring up in the first place. Your past is your
Okay.
past, your present is what I'm concerned and the future. So yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about like the people who, because we know that this, I
For
mean,
some guys.
for personally, it's not a deal breaker, but we know that this can be a deal breaker. And for some people, and they have very strong reasons why this can be a deal breaker for them. Do you think that, body count and stuff, do you think it matters more when it comes to women or when it comes to men? And do you think it's also right for those people who feel like this is a deal breaker because it says, otherwise in terms of like how many people you've been with in the past? And is it also possible that old habits die hard? And, this might be a reason of concern because there's cases where that has been shown to happen, because for me, like I try to figure out where the challenge is, where the concern is, and from my own findings, that is where it is. It's just it's I don't know how to put it because I think if I want to talk about it in a certain sense, I'll let y'all sort of talk about that a little more. Because if I talk about it in a certain sense, it'll be like I'm leaning towards one side. But
Stacey, what do
I
you
want to
think?
hear
Because I,
what you
I think
what
that
you ladies have to
most
say about it.
men typically have an issue with body count more than women. I mean, I've seldom heard women have issues with it. I've even heard a lot of men who have been around, done all the possibilities. Now they're on the market to marrying a virgin. I'm like, the nerve. Like, seriously? Want to marry a virgin now? Like, it's just, like, seriously, I'm just like, who does that? Like, I don't get it. Yeah,
No, you bring up an important point because it's a lot of men are they don't even want to hear that you
a
have
virgin.
had
I'm
up
like,
to three.
what?
Like
How?
this is
You
like
have
they
Yeah,
want a
been
virgin.
around.
yeah.
You're
In some
not a
cultures,
virgin.
in some cultures, that's like a requirement. It's in some cultures, and it's still being practiced today in some cultures, and in some religion,
Yeah.
practices where it, and actually it
Right.
has to be verified too before the, the wedding.
Mhm.
Yes, and these are men that were allowed to have partners before that. And now, I mean, in our world that we live in this culture, I don't know that to be true or that any of those practice to be happening. But I guess the question Akan was trying to ask, there is a double standard, Akan. There is a
Mhm.
double standard, and there are men, as I said before, that would ask that question. And that's the reason why we are talking about it, because I said last year it was a viral moment for those two things, because men still, some men, not all
Mm.
men, still feel the need to ask that question. And Dr. OJ made a point earlier that she doesn't think she says she agreed with the mindset that men thinks that women are not honest about it. I guess it depends, because yes, women have, they want to protect it. They have an image that they're trying to present.
Yes.
They are wanting themselves to look in a certain light. So will they kind of maybe shy away from actually being truthful and honest? You're probably right. I would agree with that. That probably most of them may not be honest with answering the question. But I don't think it should be a deal breaker in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I said, for me, it's not a question that even concerned me.
Mm.
It's not, and the only way I think it may would be concerning to me is if you tell me you are a sex addict or something, and then I'm trying to know what was your pattern of behavior before, and what caused that or what triggered it and stuff like that. Or that's probably why I may be concerned to know if we're having that conversation, or if you tell me you're recovering from, I said, maybe some type of sex addiction or something like that, then maybe we can have the conversation. But as far as futurist with me and you, it doesn't concern me, as long as I know who you are right now, and that you don't have any deadly diseases or virus or whatever the case may be. That's what I care about.
So, in other words,
Yeah.
that question can be seen as important, right? Because it can also lead to getting a man to actually say if this is something he's going to do in the future or not. Because there are men who will tell you, listen, as much as I'm going to be whatever, I might step out, from time to time, whatever. So you feel like this is a question that will sort of like allow you to see the perspective of the person in real time, how they feel about it, body language, movement, everything, even if they are claiming that they're not those people anymore.
Hmm.
So that means the question. I don't think the question is totally irrelevant, right? So it might be important to some people and it might not be important to some people. But what I want to also look at is this idea
Mm-hmm.
that let's say the lady has a high body count. Why is it frowned upon on the lady versus the man? I'm just going to give you an example of the argument, or some of the reasons that men say is men believe that when it comes to men, it's like even if they have a high body count or they're with a lot of women, they didn't. It wasn't an emotional thing. It was just something that just. But with women, it's believed, and this is what's out there in the streets, that before you allow a man to be with you, it's just like you ought to have really let him in. Some people would say let him conquer you, or before that. So, and I don't know whether that's enough reason,
See,
but
I knew that's where you were going to go with
that's what
that,
they say
because
these
yes,
days.
they
You know.
say, and it's true for the most part, for the
Mm-hmm.
majority of us, that
Yes.
whenever a woman decide that she is going to become intimate with a man, it's an emotional decision that she's
Not
making, versus
necessarily.
you guys that tend to make it like a physical decision. So,
Mm.
and which is the why when there is infidelity in a relationship, especially for the man, on the man part, if it's the woman that the infidelity is on, it hurts him more than he's willing to admit, because he knows we are emotional being, and we make those decisions most times based off emotion.
Mm.
Which is why I also say a woman can make a decision within the encounter of somebody that she's interested in when she's gonna sleep with him. It's just a matter. I mean, if she's gonna sleep with him, it's just a matter of fact of when. That's
One.
the only question that is left for her to answer. Even though sometimes men can talk their way out of it, but um it being
But
judged and frowned upon,
mhm.
and I don't think we're ever going to get away from that, because there's a lot of double standards between men and women.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even matter if, even if it's
Mhm.
let's say we're talking
Yeah.
about somebody maybe in their late 40s 50s, and the body count is even below 10, which to me that is a great number for somebody that age group. It
Mm-hmm.
is still, if it's still gonna look upon, people are gonna like, oh, and I'm like, you know it's, and let's be fair here. How many, if even if the woman has a high body count, can you really say all of those decision was made out of an emotional decision, because I don't believe that. There's no way you could have formed all that connection and you think you had something, because people have sex too for many different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's being done so frequently and so often for more than just emotional connection. Now we're in a different culture, we're in a different time, and people are having different encounters, orgies. I mean, sex now is more prevalent. There's all the things are happening, the parties, the clubs, all of those things.
Yeah.
So I think it's we're in a culture too now where the body count may be higher too, because of the environment and the culture and the time that we're in. It's not like back
Yes.
in the day, where it takes a lot for people to say yes. These days there are apps now that make it even easy for you just to go on, just to find somebody to hook up with if you're in the mood.
Mm.
So I don't know.
So that's and it's good you brought up that point, Stacey, because I think Dr. OJ, you were going to say something about that. I think when Stacey was talking about the emotional
Yeah.
and the seeing women as
Yeah,
emotional and
no
men
longer the
being
case, I
logical when it
think.
comes to that. I think that's no
Basically,
longer
yeah,
the case.
women, we're
In
emotional. Everyone is emotional. There are men that are emotional about these things too. When we talk about emotions, let's not stereotype it to one gender. And as much as
yeah,
women are emotional and we make emotional decisions, at least, let me just say some, not everybody. Some women, they just want to get off and they're going to find the next available
yeah,
vessel, person, partner to get off with, just like a man will. There's so many men, there's so many women who are in that headspace. And even it's becoming more prevalent now that if you're still that person who's like, well, I gotta be with him, I gotta like him, I gotta be in a relationship, they look at you like, it's not that serious. Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you being a like, yeah, they look at you like it's not that serious. Like you're
yeah.
being a prude. So
But
now it's now flipping around where those women
Hmm.
who are more like conservative about it, who feel like they have to be vested emotionally, they really have to be into this person, they're becoming the minority, to be
Yes,
quite
I
frank. They're
I
becoming the
agree.
minority because even for me, my they're like, "What's wrong with you? You've had children. What are you holding out on? Like, what are you like?" I have people like, "Why are you holding out? You've had children," and I'm like, "So just because I've been married and I've had children means I'm just like open to no? Come on now." I still anyway. So
go ahead.
yeah, so those schools of thought have flipped it around, and of course, like Stacy said, it's the environment, the culture, pop culture, everything around us is shifting where it's now okay and it's accessible. Everyone is doing it. Everybody's doing this and that. So talking about body counts in this generation, while it's still a thing where women still get the short end of the stick, mm, it doesn't really mean that they are innocent in the whole
Mm,
thing.
Well, it's good you said that, because that brought something to my thought that actually I was educated on. And thanks for that, Akan, because I really had no idea this was a thing until I went on. You brought it to my attention, went in social
mm,
media, and it is a
Okay.
thing. I
Yeah, well,
actually found podcasts and different
mm,
clips and stuff on the shade room, the breakfast club, that there women have what they call a whole season, apparently. So, and I have a little chat with my sisters and cousin. We're all female,
yeah.
and we were all in the chat proud to say that none of us have ever had a whole season. And my sister even brought up a meme from a popular Jamaican artist that says she typed on social media. She was like, "I've never had a whole season, and I don't want one. Who wants to be run through?" And I'm like, "Girl, I'm with you. I'm on that bandwagon." But
exactly.
the point I'm trying to make is what I'm saying is the culture where the society now that we live in make it where it's not even a thing. I don't even think it's a problem for women anymore caring about body count. I don't think so, because the culture has been set up in such a way till now. There's even, as I said, Akana to educate me on this, and I didn't know it was a thing, and it is a thing that they go through these stages of where one night stands are being had. Um, there was the popular, there was the show. Yes, Dr. OJ, don't look at us crazy. Yes, there was even the
I
show
need
that,
some
yes, the
It's
lady
edification.
was on a live talk show, and she was like, she met the guy, and she was feeling his energy across the room. And then she told him, she went over to him, the bartender. She said, "There's no what do you call that, there's no toilet paper in the toilet, and but she lied, that was just to get him to come
Yeah.
out, and they end up having sex in the freezer the same night at the bar. Yeah, and this was last year. I'm not
Mm,
talking about 10 years ago. I'm talking about she was on a show very much talking about this last year. So I said, our culture has
yeah.
created an environment, it has created a space where I don't think women care about these things anymore. And
Mhm.
that's why I don't think it's a
Yeah.
deal breaker in relationship anymore. But we're discussing it because I see that it is happening. And do I think women should care? Me
Yes.
personally, I think yes. But again, I am not here to speak for all women. I'm just here to speak for Stacy-Ann. And for me, is it a concern? Yes, it is very much a concern. It's something that I think about. No matter how much I'm in the mood, no matter how much this is
Mhm.
something that I want to do, it is something I think about. Do I want to be out here racking up numbers? Absolutely
Mhm.
not. But that has to do with my morals, my upbringing, and the way my mindset is. But
Yeah.
it, it's not a thing anymore. I don't really think women care about it anymore. Well, I'm not going to say women. I should just say some women. I don't think some
Yeah.
women care about it anymore. I don't think it's a concern
Some
for them.
women.
I don't think it's a deal breaker for them, even if a man makes them feel offended in a relationship, or even make them feel less than or anything, because the way the society is going right now and the culture is like, I can find another one like you in a minute. So there's even a song. So hey, move on to the next. That's how it is. And what is the popular saying that they say, the best way to get over somebody is to get underneath somebody else? I also don't subscribe to those things, but those things I think create an environment for the mindset and for the
Yeah.
conversation that we're having right now, for the reason why there is such a thing as people talking about body counts.
No, you know what? First of all, what in the world is whole season? Like, so
Yes.
it's like, I know there is a season in a woman's life physiologically as her body is changing where she's
Mm-hmm.
more sexual, but I didn't take that to mean that she's actually more
Mm,
just being out there doing whatever. Like, two different
Yeah,
things, right?
exactly. Yeah, I mean, biologically, we
Mm-hmm.
all have a season. Men have a season too. But I don't think that means you go around and jump on everything that moves. But that's not what, seemingly, when I looked at it, when Akan brought it to my attention, I did some research, I dive into it. That wasn't even talked about, Dr. OJ. That intelligent part of the conversation wasn't even
Oh,
had, to say that yes, women do go through stages. And sometimes it can be seen as an emancipation too for some women that probably was their sexuality was kind of policed. So some women do go through these kind of what do you call it, empowerment, these emancipation time in their life, where they see themselves as freedom, where they want to explore their bodies, and they want to figure certain things out. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as you are responsible, as long as you are careful, and as long as you're honest with the person that you're with, whether this is not a long-term thing, this is not a commitment or anything like that. I am just saying that I didn't realize it's also was another aspect of, you go into a bar and you see somebody and you're in the freezer banging somebody within 10 minutes. I don't know. I'm not trying to judge people. Please don't kill me. I'm just saying it just
I
sounds
mean,
funny. It just
those
sounds
things
weird.
happen. It's funny to us because we don't subscribe to that lifestyle, but to people who do, that's normal. That's like every day in the club, you know. Just like people who get out there often, just out there in the club doing whatever. It's like
yeah.
smoking a cigar, you know. That's just it for them. But does it make it right? I don't even know right now in our society when it comes to this dating pool, what is right and what is wrong? Is it just everything goes? Because it seems like everything is going and everybody is just accepting of everything, and we're just
Mm-hmm.
normalizing everything, and we make it like, like I think 10 years ago when you said things like this, people would still feel some type of way even talking about it, not to
Mm-hmm.
even talk about being attached to it. But now it's like a badge of honor. Yes, I've done that. I've had sex in the freezer 10 minutes after meeting a guy. Yeah, I did it. Like I don't get it. Like, what is right and what is wrong now? We talk about body count. Yeah, it might not be significant or it might not be a deal breaker, but we also want to be mindful to focus on the fact that there are side effects to even having a high body count. So statistics shows that the higher your body count, the more you are prone to having contacted some type of sexually transmitted disease. The
Mm-hmm.
more you are prone to having been a person who might have had to have abortions, right? Because from that frequency, things are going to happen. So all of these things have repercussions. So it doesn't just end with you just having a body count. It's the other things in your life that it affects. And even people having to go through abortions, they have been known to deal with the
Yeah.
trauma of it years after, and even dealing with fertility issues or infertility issues and things like that. So these are things that actually impact other areas of relationships that we definitely want to take account of, to say, yeah, we want to talk about it not in a judgmental way, but we also want to take a stand to say, okay, let's actually normalize setting some
Mm-hmm.
type of standard for yourself in relationship, understanding that the decisions that you're making today, whether in your whole season or in your no season, it's going to eventually play a role in the future relationship you're going to have. It's never at eat your
100%.
cake and have it. And society, I think, wants people to think eat your cake and have it, because you can be in your whole season, do all you want, and then you can look forward to having a blissful, fruitful relationship in the future. Like, is that even something we're considering when talking about this body count issue?
And the mental state too, the mental effect that it has on you afterwards,
Mhm.
all
Like
that
having what?
emotional trauma that you may have experienced, because who knows how many of these men actually reciprocate the feelings too that you may develop.
Mhm.
As I said, I know that not all women are emotional and not every woman operate in that emotional space, but that is an emotional experience for us. I don't care what they say, because I don't know the scientific name right now for the chemical that is actually released whenever a woman orgasm or she engage in sexual intercourse with someone. But it's the
Mhm.
same chemical that gets released when a woman
Mm.
breastfeeds. So it's
Mhm.
you're bonding with somebody else. And I said, and we're not talking about this because we're here, as Dr. OJ said,
Mhm.
it's not from a judgmental space. It's just that we are also trying to educate our community too, to make sure whatever lifestyle you choose to live, that you have all the information and you're well informed. When I was having the conversation with my cousins and my sisters in the group chat we're in, my one of my cousins, she happened to be a gynecologist, and she
Mhm.
was like, yeah, Stacy, it is a thing, because I see the repercussions of it every day in my office. I treat the sexually transmitted diseases from it, because again, our society often portray these things to be normal, and we're trying to normalize these things.
Mhm.
We're trying to
Mhm.
make it look like it is so great and it's so fun, but I don't think we're doing such a great job of educating our young
Yes.
people, or even people that may not be so young, whether they're in their 30s or 40s or whatever age group you fall in, that you also have to be responsible, because make things convenient now, because there's prep. That's the drugs that you can take to prevent yourself from contracting the HIV virus. So now people are not worried about pregnancy, or even if they're having unprotected sex, you can go get Plan B. And Plan B is not a contraceptive. It's to me is like a pre-abortion is what you're basically doing it, because you're doing something irresponsibly, because the culture and the world we live in has make it so convenient for people to be irresponsible. That's my thing. Like I don't know. Like I think there's a lot of things that has become convenient, which make us make poor choices too. Because of convenience, we're making poor choices.
I, yeah. No, no, go on.
But
Yes, sir.
there's a reason for that, right? Sorry, Dr. Oja, I just want to say, so on both sides, so on like on the male and the female side, compared to, I'd say maybe 40 years ago, the people are racking up, the body count is being racked up on
Mm-hmm.
both sides now. We are in a high sex culture right now. We have a high, and I definitely had watched a podcast too that was talking about that conversation of what was and what is. And so I just wanted to give some perspective on what is causing this convenience. It's been seen that in the past we had the values, we had communities more integrated communities where people were able to, the values were, being able to meet someone and, mix with the person before you got with them. And it was easier for you to refer people or meet up because you were in groups. So basically, even with men, a lot of men used to be in communities where they hung out with other men. So even when they were married, and that's not the case now. But now it's like everyone is, there's a lot more separation. There's more. There's not really a community vibe around everywhere. Everyone is sort of on their own. That's also encouraged a lot of loneliness. And also with the advent of like social media, most of these things that didn't used to happen now, you have them on the apps, so you can actually just look it up. Like you talked about the apps to do hookup culture. So it's like sort of like some of the things that have happened with evolution, and with also not having like societies that hold each other accountable. This is not even something about the parents, just something about the friends and, even women groups, this communities, it's not there anymore. So I think, just the economy, everything is just, people are increasingly being isolated more. And I think that's also causing that. And then with all the misinformation and, it's like, someone was also talking about
Mhm.
transaction and value with the things you see on social media. Thing is, it's in your face. Men, even women, even men are doing it as well. So it's just been, the culture has just, it's evolved. We've evolved with social media and all of these things. But these are some of the, things, downsides to, you, with the evolution, which of course some of the repercussions are the things you talked about, the STDs,
So
unwanted
what do you
pregnancies
think
and
the
all
Well,
that.
solution
So I just
is,
wanted to
Akan?
add that
Like,
point there.
what would you say the solution is to kind of getting us back to? I think Dr. OJ talked about maybe normalizing being more responsible,
mhm.
having a little bit more respect for your body, yourself, and the
Mm.
things that you do, like because of the effects that these things have effects later on down the line. Like, what do you
Yes.
think are some of the solutions that we can give, provide our community that are listening?
Oh, the only solutions that I would think about is, the reason why you don't do certain things is, is because of the value that you hold when it reaches that. And honestly, if I'm being honest, it might be very difficult to, solution wise, like to sort of reverse. I'm hoping there's a way that we can, but the incentive to the incentive to a lot of people to dissuade them or to have them is not much. We know in society it's not regarded anymore. So I feel like back in the day there used to be an incentive. So I think for me the solution would be, hey, listen, sort of like really pushing out the reward for abstaining, or even if you're not abstaining, controlling or being conscious of how you're moving, just being self-aware. So I think we've moved from a place of a lot of sense of self-worth and self-awareness to a place of
Mhm.
less or little or no self-awareness. A lot of us are just living and just going. So I think because it's that self-awareness, consciousness, self-worth that allows you to say, hey,
Mhm.
listen, this body, this temple is a very special, temple. And I can't just give it to anyone. But when, like I said, when there's no incentive, when it feels like, yeah, but I can do it, nothing is going to happen. Everybody, life is going on. And like I said, there are other, someone also mentioned, it's like there are other like things that have shown, like, so for example, we know the things like the OnlyFans and all that, where women are going on there and doing, and they're making money. And so it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be tough. But if there was a solution that would be suggested, I would say, it's just really trying to, educate, encourage people to really be conscious of what it is to be self-aware, and just the values of having like a relationship that's more controlled and is more valuable. The reward for it is
Okay.
better.
So
But I don't
earlier,
know how that's
Stacy,
going
you
to
were
work in this
asking
culture.
about the hormones that are released during sex. So for
Mm-hmm.
even those group of people that say, "Oh, just go in and go out,"
Mm-hmm.
regardless of whether you're doing it mindlessly or mindfully, when you have intercourse with someone, oxytocin is released. It's a love hormone in little
Mm-hmm.
doses, and the repetition of that will build up. And that's where you see where you say, we started out just plain and simple. Now we're catching feelings. Dopamine is associated with pleasure and reward, endorphins, makes you feel good. So some people, when they're depressed and they just feel like, what can make me feel good? Just for a brief moment, they'll have that dopamine endorphin
Mm-hmm.
release. And, it really helps. Now, the serotonin, the mood regulator, has been prescribed to help to say, especially with women, who are of a certain age, it's advised that sexual intercourse would help with balancing out the hormones and regulating your moods, with the mood swings that women experience, with whatever the way our body is set and things like that. So there is some type of behind the scenes chemical reaction activity going on that has some type of impact, whether we want to accept it or not. And most people might want to go with the flow and the general narrative of it doesn't matter, everyone's doing it, I'm doing it, no big deal. But there is always a big deal to it. And as far as reversing, I don't think evolution of humanity can reverse. We can go back, right? But we can move forward. But I think we
Mm-hmm.
definitely have a choice in how we move forward, how we decide. It's like saying, okay, yesterday you made all these bad choices, but then you have another day, clean slate, new opportunity to do better. So high body count, low body count, no body count. Everyone is responsible for creating a narrative out there. So while there is the popular opinion of saying, okay, culture embraces all of this open sexuality, everybody can do it. I think there's still that population of us who can still amplify our voices by maintaining certain levels of, you know, chasteness when it comes to relationship, understanding that the value remains when you're able to consider yourself enough to be preserved for that person that you really want to be in a relationship. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
dignity in it. It's not going to automatically mean that your relationship is going to turn out best, but there is still a lot of dignity in knowing that you maintain a level of value in yourself, that you kept certain things away for a kind of special relationship. It's still there, whether you want to believe it or not. And I think we need to now switch the narrative to balancing it out. Let's not shame one gender over the other. I think that's where the imbalance has been when it comes to this discussion. Shaming one gender over. If a guy has a high body count, he really should be ashamed of himself. Like, literally, keep it in your pants. And if a woman has a high body count, like, come on now, keep it together. Like, it's not a claim to fame. There's no badge of honor in either sex going all wild out about it. And we need to
Mm-hmm.
balance. And I think having that balanced conversation and letting it know that it's pretty much a human problem. Men should respect themselves as much as women need to respect themselves. Let's stop giving some type of hype and recognition to the guys and making them feel like, yeah, you're the man before. But it doesn't mean you're also spreading a lot of your goodness away as you're spreading it around and making the women feel like they are less just because they do the same thing. So that balance and just really being able to maintain a positive narrative around it, I think it will move us in the right direction.
I agree. I agree. And I think if I think about what I'm seeing happening across the board on social media, and maybe it's just the things that I follow and the things that I choose to connect to, I think we're doing not a bad job of it. There's a lot of podcasts, there's a lot of education, there's a lot of things that is trying to move the needle forward, even
Mhm.
with the men that are trying to tell them that, hey, this whole notion of sowing your royal oats, and
Wild
it's a
oats.
yeah, and it's a flex for you to be with this amount of women. Like, a lot of men are now coming out and say, during this time of my abstinence season, I was more successful because I was able to focus more, because I wasn't so preoccupied
Mhm.
with thinking about the next conquest, or because I'm juggling multiple women or something like that. My thought process and my direction and discipline was all over the place. So I see that being pushed, not just on the side for the women, but I see it being pushed too amongst the side of the men. So I am actually excited, and I am actually pleased to see where our culture is going in terms of that tone, those conversation, and the narrative that is being pushed there. And I think we just need to see more of it, to
Mhm.
create that balance and to kind of get us on the right path, because we stronger marriages build a stronger community, and it
Yes.
builds a stronger world. And it's not
Mhm.
just financial too, and it also put us in a better financial state. I don't know if people
Yes.
realize that. So it, because
Yes.
you can do more together than you can do
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
apart. And not mention the tax breaks that you get. It's two
Mm-hmm.
incomes. I mean,
Yeah.
I just think we need to normalize a committed
Mhm.
relationship, committed family, and then create community and space where we're able to build them, where we build a community around them to encourage them to stay together, to work
Mm-hmm.
through the difficult times. And I think if we can do that and we can accomplish that, then we will move further along as a people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, just to add to that, that I agree with us continue to have that conversations, but also we should also have the conversation of just that same human consideration and just sort of being encouraging of each other, because I've also found out that a lot of the relationships that I've also gone through today. So there's a difference between when you're racking up those body counts because you just feel like that's something you want to do, but then there's also people who it's been also shown that most relationships that are occurring in this day and age have actually started through sex. It's like sex is usually the route that people use to start relationships, when they get into that part. And so sometimes it can happen where, they have sex and everything, and then maybe it didn't just go wild, and then now you have to go to someone else because you're believing going to be. So I think just, being able to vet better and just being able to be patient and really being able to try to know someone better before you engage, in intimacy, I think is important. And I also wanted to say that one of the things too that has also caused the high rate of sex too is the high stress society. It's been shown that the society has become highly stressful. We live in a
Mm-hmm.
very highly stressed society, and a lot of times people use sex as an escape. So I'm hoping that as we move forward as well, there's going to be a way for us to sort of work on that, where people don't use sex as an escape, because like I said, we can always talk about these things on the surface, but when you go individual to individual, people are struggling with really crazy things. People are struggling with crazy desires, crazy stress, finding ways to cope with just life in
Yes.
general, and often they find an escape. This is real life. It happens. A lot of people cannot come out to say it, but I have seen it and I have observed it.
Mm-hmm.
So high stress, plus loneliness, very bad combo.
Hmm.
Very bad combo can make you make really bad decisions and also make you look for relief. So that's something that I think we should talk more about, because I think we don't really talk about that. We really talk about the judgment
Yes.
part. Oh, don't do this, but nobody's really talking about what's really causing these things. For me, I had to, I sit down. I was talking to someone about it, about the society and how, definitely not a conversation I want to bring here, but I was just wondering why people are having
Yes,
so
that's
many
true.
dogs. It's
That's a
just like a
fact.
lot of people are struggling with loneliness, and so we need to really get back to being able to maybe interacting with one another just on a normal level, seeing how people are doing normally, and just allowing them to have a place to talk, vent, just talk normally. But everyone feels like they're more isolated, but they're lonely and they're looking for an escape, and the rest
No,
Well,
you're
I
is
will
history.
encourage
So I
our
just wanted to add
community to
that.
become more self-aware. And because all of this boils in down to, what is the saying that to thyself be true? Well, it's not even the saying. I think that's a scripture. Um, it it's when you know who you are and you know yourself, I think you can also to make better decisions about, because you have to know what it is that, or where you are at, or what space you're in, because there's a lot of ways to counteract the loneliness that Akan is talking about. Or
mm-hmm.
we community is important even when people are in relationships. People too find themselves to be lonely, because your partner cannot fulfill every single need
Every
that you
need.
have, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
community is important. That you have your confidants, you have your friends, the people you hang out with, whatever categories those people fall into for you. Community is important, and like you said, checking into on each other, especially for people that are single. Isolation can be a tough thing to walk, or road to go through when you're single
Mm-hmm.
too. To make sure that, not that you're policing people's life, but just to say that, hey, if you want to go out, to get out of the house, if you want to do something, go take a walk. You go to the gym. There's other
Mm-hmm.
ways to release stress, and to take your mind off things and not feel stressed or lonely, or other things that you can do, group activity settings. you name it. I think it's just where you put your focus and your energy and the choices you choose to make.
Stacy is so right. And as we close out today, one thing I can say is this, right? There's so many ways to skin a cat. It's just like there's so many
Hmm.
ways to fight loneliness, there's so many ways to fight stress. So, making the option, one thing I know is as humans, we always have a choice to make. Every day we're making choices, every moment of our lives, we're making choices. So, whatever choice you make, regardless of the underlying issues or the pre existing factors that predisposes you to the situation, you always have a choice to make. And of course, we're out here to provide an objective and non judgmental perspective to these conversations and topics, and hoping to help guide you to make the best choice for you. So that's really what it is. So, whatever choice you're making, make sure it's the best choice for the outcome that you're hoping your life has. And that's it. That's the only thing. And you're able to live with it. If you're able to live with the consequences of your choice, then to each his own, as they say. All right, guys, it's been a wonderful time today. I've enjoyed talking about body count, and none of you still answered me what the body count is. I'm still waiting for that answer.
That,
But
as I
oh,
said, Dr. OJ, that conversation is for me and my significant
I'm
other.
body
It
hey,
ain't
count.
your
for the world
significant
or for
other.
YouTube or
Okay,
social
okay,
media.
okay.
Yeah,
It's all
but
good. It's
hey,
all good.
if
Yeah,
it's a conversation that needs to be had, because as I said, I really don't care.
yeah, I
But
know.
if you feel that you need to ask, hey, go for it.
We are all children of God, and God loves us all. And with that, I say
Yeah.
have a wonderful rest of your week, people. And we'll be
Yes.
back next week. Don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel, turn your notifications on, share our content, like, comment, and make sure you follow us on Instagram as well on Singles Connect Podcast. And we'll be back again for another topic next week, guys. What do you think?
Yeah, we'll be here.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely. We're here to
bye.
chop it up again. Most definitely.